Ugonma's shop was always buzzing with activity. Her bright smile and skillful hand made her customers feel special. She was known for creating the most beautiful dresses. During the Christmas season, her complex shop overflowed with people desperate to wear something new and perfect for the festivities. Everyone believed she had the magic touch. But what they didn't know was that Ugonma's magic wasn't the kind found in fairy tales. It was darker, a secret so terrifying that if everyone found out, they would run and never look back. Behind her cheerful smile and colorful fabrics, Ugonma had a small locked room. No one was allowed in there. The door was painted brown and a faded curtain hung in front of it. Most people never paid attention to it. After all, they were too busy trying on their clothes or making last-minute order. It was on a particular hot afternoon when Ugonma finished cutting a young woman's fabric for a Christmas dress. She glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 1:55 p.m. The sun blazed through the window, casting long shadow on the floor. She wiped her head on the apron, glanced around to make sure no one was watching, and slipped into the small locked room. Inside, the air was thick and smelled of metal and earth. At the center of the room sat an old calabash. The calabash wasn't ordinary. It was filled with dark, thick blood. The blood shimmered strangely, even though there was no light in the room. It seemed to breathe as though alive. Ugonma took a deep breath. Her hands shook slightly as she dipped the fabric into the calabash. The blood soaked the cloth, swelling like a snake. Her heart pumped. The native doctor had warned her, do this at exactly 2 p.m. or it won't work. As the clock struck 2 p.m., Ugonma whispered some words under her breath, words she didn't fully understand. The blood in the calabash bubbled for a second, then grew still. She pulled the fabric out, bringing out the crimson liquid, and color of the fabric hadn't changed. But Ugonma knew the magic was sealed. She left the room, locked it carefully behind her, and returned to the main shop. The sun was blazing even harder now, making her shop glow in the light. Suddenly, as if drawn by an invincible force, customers started arriving. One after the other, they entered asking for new dresses. The young woman whose fabric Ugonma had just soaked was among them, smiling brightly, unaware of what had just happened. The next week, the streets were full of people wearing Ugonma's creations. People admired them, complimenting how stunning they had looked. "Where did you get this dress?" they would ask. "Oh, from Ugonma's tailor," came the proud replies. And some customers flooded Ugonma's shop, eager to have their own perfect dresses. But something strange began to happen. The young woman who had come for her Christmas dress woke up one morning to find out that she had lost her job. A friend she had trusted stopped speaking to her. Her boyfriend broke up with her for no reason. It felt like everything good in her life was slipping away piece by piece. She couldn't understand it. She thought back to when things started going wrong. It was exactly a week after she had worn the beautiful dress Ugonma made for her. She wasn't the only one. Other customers who had gotten their clothes from Ugonma began to experience the same strange bad luck. Businesses failed, relationships fell apart, and sadness seemed to follow them like a dark cloud. None of them knew that the source of their problem was the very clothes they loved so much. In the middle of it all, Ugonma's businesses kept growing. Her shop was now the most popular in town. She smiled more than ever, but behind her smile was a chilling secret. One rainy evening, as Ugonma was closing her shop, she noticed a man standing across the street. He wore a long black coat and held a small bag in his hand. His eyes were sharp and piercing, almost as if they could see into her soul. Ugonma's smile faded for the first time. The man didn't move. He just stared at her, rain dripping from his hat. Then, slowly, he lifted his hand and pointed a finger at her. A cold chill ran down Ugonma's spine. Who was he? Did he know? She hurried inside, locked the door, and leaned against it, her heart racing. The shop was dark and silent. Outside, the rain kept falling. She listened for footsteps, but all she could hear was the pounding of her heart. For the first time, fear crept into her mind. Maybe her secret wasn't as safe as she thought it was, and maybe someone was coming for her. Ugonma's hand trembled as she gripped the door handle. The man in the black coat was gone, but the memory of his piercing gaze lingered. She peered through the window, the rain blurring her vision. The street was empty now, just puddles reflecting the dim street light. But the fear inside her grew heavier. She could almost feel his eyes still watching her. She shook her head and took a deep breath. It's just my imagination, she thought, but deep down she knew better. Her heart whispered that something had shifted. Something was coming, and this time she wasn't sure if she could stop it. Ugonma turned off the light and climbed the stairs to her small room above the shop. The familiar smell of fabric and thread did little to calm her nerves. She sat on her bed and tried to think. Her mind raced. Who was that man? Could he know about the calabash? About the blood? Her throat tightened. The native doctor had warned her. The more steers she took from her customers, the more dangerous the consequences could become. But Ugonma had ignored the warning. She loved the success, the endless stream of customers, the admiration. How could she stop when everything was finally perfect? But now, everything felt wrong. Suddenly, a soft knock echoed through the room. Ugonma's heart froze. She stared at the door to her room. The knock came again, a little louder this time. Knock, knock. Her chest tightened. Who could this be at this time of the night? The shop was closed. Everyone should be home. She stood up slowly, her legs weak beneath her. Knock, knock, knock. The knock grew harder, more urgent. Who's there? She called out, her voice shaking. There was no answer. Ugonma's breath quickened. Her mind screamed at her not to open the door. But her hand moved on its own. Before she realized it, she was reaching for the handle. Her finger trembled as they caught around the cold metal. She twisted the handle and opened the door just a crack, but there was no one there. The hallway was empty. Rainwater dripped from the ceiling, forming a tiny puddle on the floor. The light flickered. Ugonma let out a shaky breath. Maybe she was losing her mind. Maybe the stress was finally catching up on her. She started to close the door when she noticed something on the floor. A small folded piece of paper. Her stomach twisted. As she bent down to pick it up, her finger felt numb. As she unfolded the damp paper, there was only one sentence written inside. In smoked, shaking handwriting, I know what you did. The word felt like a punch to her chest. The paper slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the floor. Her breath came in short, panicking gasps. Her eyes darted around the hallway, but there was no sign of anyone. She slammed the door shut and locked it. Her heart was racing so fast, she thought it might burst. She backed away from the door until she hit the wall. The room suddenly felt smaller, the wall closing in on her. A loud crash came from downstairs. Ugonma screamed, her heart leaping into her throat. The sound echoed through the silent shop. She stood frozen, fear like ice in her veins. She forced herself to move, her feet shuffling forward. She crept down the stairs, each step creaking beneath her weight. The shop was pitch black, shadows stretching across the walls like dark fingers. She reached the bottom of the stairs and peered into the shop. Everything looked normal, except for the doors to the small locked room. It was open, wide open. Her blood turned into ice. She knew she locked it. She was sure she locked it. Slowly, she stepped towards the room. The door swung slightly in the breeze. The hinges creaked like a whisper. She peered inside, her eyes staring in the darkness. The calabash was there in the center of the room, but the blood inside was gone. If you want me to drop the part 2 of this video, kindly comment in the comment section. If you love my stories, kindly subscribe to my channel, like my videos, and share this video to as many people as possible. See you in my next episode.